Okay, and now for the newspaper articles about giant skeletons being found. One report comes about an Indian burial ground from Fountain of Youth Park in St. Augustine, Florida. And they're talking about several giants. Also, mysterious shell mounds of Florida built by a prehistoric race of giants. Skeletons found in these mounds were all buried facing eastward in sitting positions. Each was from 7 to 8 feet tall. This, I think, is the St. Petersburg shell mound from the Calusa. This is about a rare fossil bones that were unearthed here in Daytona Beach. They're the bones of a sloth, a 3-ton, 90-foot mammal which roamed Florida 10,000 years ago, has been unearthed in a Daytona Beach shell pit. So that means that this creature, this giant creature, was living alongside of the ancient people of Florida that built shell mounds, who have been reported as being giants, and that makes total sense because back then, everything was giant. Here's another one. Skull found indicates previous Floridians were sizable. Boca Grande, Florida. But it says, discovery of a skull 1/4 larger than that of the normal modern man, together with bones, indicating a probable height of not less than 7 feet, today led to speculation over theories of a giant race believed to have inhabited Florida before the coming of the Spaniards. The portions of the skeleton were found yesterday by working men grading the road near Charlotte and Leo County lines. The skull, which had been immersed in a gelatin solution before measurements could be taken, was 23 centimeters in length and 18 inches wide. The length of the thigh bone was 63 centimeters. The bones are believed to be those of a male. The specimens are being prepared for shipment to the Smithsonian. Okay, well, where are they? I'm going to do a video next. All of the giant bones sent to the Smithsonian. I'm going to make a list of how many times this happens, because this happens so much. And what are the odds that the Smithsonian has lost, like, let's say there's probably 500 cases at least of this happening. So Smithsonian has lost 500 out of 500 giant bones? I'm going to make a video. These giant bones were sent to the Smithsonian Institute, which already has dispatched one unsuccessful expedition to Florida to evacuate shell mounds on the West Coast in search of proof of the giant race theory. Thursday, August 13th, 1914. Race of giants once inhabited this peninsula. Mounds near Seminole Bridge gave up bones of mammoth people. Must have been 9 feet tall. Professor Pratt of Southland Seminary makes preliminary investigation and may excavate extensively. That the shell mounds at the end of Seminole Bridge closest to St. Petersburg, if dug into, would reveal skeletons of a tribe of men about which little is known, is the opinion of Professor J.H. Pratt of Southland Seminary, who yesterday visited the mounds and dug into a few. Skulls and bones were taken from them several weeks ago by a party of men, and its probable later date thorough excavation will be made in search of this race of people yet little has been heard of. So this party of men were probably from the Smithsonian. This was never followed through because, yeah, they found race of giants, and so that's why they shut this down. Yesterday, on account of poor facilities for excavating, little digging was done. The trip being made primarily to allow the professor to establish himself whether the mounds were worth going into. He is confident that there were giant piles of shell on this site of the bayou, spanned by the Seminole Bridge, was once the site of an Indian village of something size, and that if excavations were made, skeletons would be found, as well as pieces of pottery, implements of the hunting and warfare, and other things intimate with this life of the Aborigines. Some time ago, when the shell was being taken from one of these mounds for road work, did you just hear that? 2 complete skeletons were found, besides a number of separate bones. One of 3 leg bones was 2 feet and some inches in length. Comparing this length with the length of the bone of the leg of a man 6 feet tall would establish the fact that the race of Indians who lived in these parts, probably hundreds of years ago, try thousands, were giant that would have been over 9 feet tall and had a leg bone 2 feet long. The fact, coupled with the extraordinary size of some of the skulls dug up, brings about the assumption that race of abnormally large people inhabited the peninsula, and is likely an effort will be made to unearth more skeletons at an early date. That's not true. It never happened. Numerous shell mounds on the peninsula have been opened, and many treasures of the Indian days have been unearthed. Around St. Petersburg, there are a number of such mounds, which may have been opened a number of times. Odd pieces of pottery, weapons, and bones, sometimes whole skeletons, have been taken out, and the fact is well established that this section was thickly populated with Indians. Here's another one. Giant bones found in Florida. Left. Arrowheads with holes drilled into them, probably to hold in poison. Below is a skeleton of a woman believed to have belonged to a race of giants. Remains of what is believed to have been a prehistoric race of American giants were discovered not long ago by divers who descended to the bottom of Silver Springs near Ocala, Florida. The human skeletons found in a submerged burial chamber were so large that persons who viewed them expressed the belief that the men of the primitive race attained a height of 7 feet. Along with the bones said to have lain undisturbed for 2,500 years, were discovered many tools, weapons, and ornaments. Among the finds were clay pots and idols, bone needles, flint arrowheads, and fragments of jewelry. A search for mastodon fossils led to the discovery of human remains as the exploration was continued in the depths of the springs. Here's another. Giant Indian skeletons roamed Indian swamps 500 years ago, living on shell foods. Tampa, Florida. Giant Indians who roamed Florida swamps 500 years or more, living on shell foods which they cracked with their teeth, is a picture unfolding by archaeologists who have delved into a burial mound on the Gulf Island near here. The skeletons were discovered on a small section of land where a lone fisherman has lived for years. Scientists estimate the bones are at least 500 years old, and the remains are of a tribe known as the Garibs, natives of the West Indies. They are believed to have inhabited the state and adjacent islands before the arrival of Spaniards in Florida. These skulls, larger than those of current history, battered and crushed, indicate tribal battles. The jaw and teeth are unusually large. Likewise are the bodies. Bones indicate the Indians of past ages were veritable giants in comparison with those of today. Mounds similar to the one in which bones were unearthed are common in the state. The bones have been sent to the Smithsonian for examination. Wait till I make my new video about that. Another. Bones of prehistoric giants, relics of bygone race, may be exhibited at Jamestown. Waldo, Florida. Neanderthal hybrid compared with the Wendover, Florida skull with European DNA. Giant skeletons found in Florida. Men 8 feet tall once roamed in local forests. Scientific study of relics and bones found last summer at Elm Grove. Now this one I'm not 100% sure if it comes from Florida. Let's just read it. Scientific study of relics and bones found last summer at Elm Grove give insight into the character and customs of prehistoric Americans. Bones show Indians were preceded by race of men 8 feet tall. Skull formation indicated higher degree of civilization than the Indians. Okay, let's just say humans, because that's the truth. It's the humans, but yielded to a more warlike and barbarous race. Yeah, humans. The following article dealing with relics and skeletons exhumed at Elm Grove during the summer was written by a man highly skilled in archaeology who has made the long and comprehensive study of the objects and kindly allowed the news the privilege of publishing his conclusions. His reasoning is so logical and clear, and his descriptions that the possible have added many important lessons in this study of Native American races as a tale struggling against a barbarous race of foes. That's probably humans that they're talking about. The barbarous race of foes, that's a great description of humans. Yeah, so, even if they were giant, even if they could crush us, if they don't have that violence in their blood like humans do, they're going to be easier to kill. It's very hard to read. Okay. The new school building in Elm Grove at Loring Place would be building a structure which would become, in a sense, a monument. Bullshit. To this unknown civilization. But that building occupies the very site where perhaps one of the most terrible battles could describe has been fought between civilized but defenseless race against the extermination by a more cruel and barbarous nation. Humans. Okay, I added the humans part, but that's what I've been finding all over, is that the original giants that were here were taken down by the new arrival of humans. The hundreds and very likely thousands of graves at, I can't read that, it's all squished together. And then it says, the spot where nearly 100 graves were opened in the excavation for the foundation for the building. How unfortunate it is that the relics from these graves were not taken care of and placed in the school building for something of future generations. That's crap. Giants. The opening of the graves and unearthing of the skeletons in the excavation at Loring Place in Elm Grove caused so unusual because vague traditions about frequent digging up of human bones by farmers at work in the near Loring Place in the years gone by. The writer, Loring Place, the skull was much larger in every way than the average Caucasian head. It measured 25 inches around above the cast and eye, and with the flesh and hair on, would have been at least, and the article gets cut off, but it says how a 5'6" American of today compares with the size of the average prehistoric Americans. Bones of a giant race are found by CCC diggers. Theory of early white Americans voiced at Silver Springs. So I did read one of this articles about the Silver Springs discovery, but this is a different one about it, and it might have some new information, so I'm going to read it. Silver Springs. Recent exploration of a Florida shell mound as a federal emergency relief project has disclosed much hereafter data in that mysterious mound builders inhabiting the area from 2,000 to 5,000 years ago, which has in turn led to varied as their appearance, and most pronounced of these is that they were white. Indeed, there is basis for the skepticism of a white race of Americans before Columbus. Aside from Viking, Peruvian Inca legends are described by Lucas Vasquez in 1520 as the Duhare. Oh my gosh, I'm doing a video about that. Country of the same name, Florida coast exists. I have to look into that. He described an exceedingly light in color, gigantic stature, and having abundance of hair. They may have been something with the Alls and Tequesta, rude and fierce tribes inhabiting the east below Cape Canaveral, which were different and who were distinct from the Timucua and Calusa, holding the remainder of the tribes. Okay, wait. Legend of a tribe of redheads known in their own language as rabbit men residing along the Texas, here it says, skulls of man and woman antedating Timucua Nation inhabiting Florida upon discovery of America. So the Timucua lived for 10,000 years. If this is antedating the Timucua, this is over 10,000 years old. And as far as I know, that sounds like about one of the oldest civilizations in the world. An advanced civilization, anyway. Note the worn teeth probably denoting age, and the fracture at the base of the man's skull. Find the better teeth, higher forehead, and absence of orbital ridges on the woman. Right is a skeleton of a young woman 6 foot tall and a massive build belonging to that mysterious prehistoric people known as the Florida Colossus. This is a new one. The remains of a prehistoric race of giants have frequently been dug up at St. Augustine, Florida, and last week, in excavating for a cellar, a workman disinterred an immense iron crowbar which must have been used by the unknown Aborigines. It is a 10-foot long, tapering at each end with a sharp point, and weighs 190 pounds. And that's going to do it for the skeleton report. Strange monster is killed in Florida. Hunter in the Everglades slays big reptile formerly thought to be a creature of Indian imagination. When looking up Florida's underground include freshwater springs, sinkholes, underwater caverns, underwater rivers, and it's got a huge, extensive, amazing underground. And just to name a few, there's the Blue Grotto, which is the largest of many clear water caverns, and it's 100 feet deep. There's Devil's Den, another underwater cavern, and this is one of the oldest sites. There's Florida Caverns State Park, and it's one of the state's only parks with dry caves. Weeki Wachee is another spring where you can actually get Wakula Springs, Morrison Springs, Peacock Springs, Jenny Springs, Warren Cave, vacationidea.com. So many. And some of these places are so beautiful. The color of the water, the light, they're like miracles. They're amazing. And with waterfalls. And someday, I want to get in that water. And let's not forget, Florida is known for having the Fountain of Youth. It's actually an official historical landmark, this place, and you can actually drink the water there. In Hollywood, Florida, is this ancient circle that they kept and tried to modernize. And within this circle, there's all kinds of things going on. But one of the most interesting things are these massive, massive baobab trees that look like they're thousands and thousands of years old. And how did they get here? They're pretty amazing. That would be a place I would want to go to visit in Florida. Something kind of neat happened when I was analyzing and examining the maps that I made, and I overlaid them to see if there were any overlapping locations, and I did find some interesting patterns. One of the patterns, just knowing what I know about the Apalachicola River, it's just such a hot spot to me. And not only are there ancient prehistoric archaeological sites here, like the Pierce site, and there's one right here. There's Bigfoot sightings, and I'm like, there has to be dogman sightings here. Just because, you know what? I'm going to search for Apalachicola, Florida dogman sightings. And I didn't do a deep dive. I like to look at pictures. But this came up, dogman of Apalachicola, bizarre humanoid encounter near Apalachicola, Florida. Werewolf feeding on deer along Apalachicola National Forest, Florida Highway. I also found this map that somebody made. I don't know who. I found it on the internet, and this person plotted out the dogmen in Florida, and I will compare it to my map, but I can tell already it lines up with mine. because this little, well, we'll get into that in a minute. So does Apalachicola have dogman reports? I'm going to say yes. Put in the dogman here, and you've got ancient site, skunk apes, and dogman. Apalachicola is officially a very, 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 very hot spot. Now, Tallahassee has a lot going on. It's got giants, it's got mounds, it's got dogmen. I didn't really find any Bigfoot reports coming from there. If anybody knows of any, let me know. Oh my gosh, this place is fire. If I were going to go deep, I would check to see if there are any dogman accounts. But what I did check, looking at this, is there was a big gap here. And this is Putnam County. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I went and I put in the search, Putnam County, Florida, Bigfoot. What is that? Okay, I don't know. Let's not get into that. One of the first things that comes up is Barden Booger, the lesser-known Florida Bigfoot, located in the pine flatwoods of Putnam County in Florida. And it goes on. The Barden Booger, Platka, Putnam County, Florida. Fill in that gap right there, because it would make no sense for them to be isolated up here and not be connected. What else is interesting about this? One of the most important, if not the most important place, archaeological spot in all of Florida is Crystal River. From the ancients, from the pyramid mound builders, Mayan, this place is an ancient hotspot. What is so interesting to me is that we know that the humans came and wiped out the natives, that, these pyramid builders. And so it's interesting that very obviously and conspicuously surrounding this site, but not at all on the site, pushed out and surrounding the site, are all these Bigfoot, dogmen, giant reports. It's conspicuous the way that it's like avoiding this area but surrounding it. To me that means something. And then moving along, okay, so I saw here Lee County, Florida Bigfoot. From bigfootencounters.com, a story of a Bigfoot from Lee County, Florida, including track photos. On the morning of October 5th and 6th, 2009, a friend and myself were hog hunting on state land in Lee County, Florida, when I came across a number of large footprints that did not appear to be man-made in a remote area. I have been deer hunting and wild hogs in Florida swamps for a number of years and have never come across anything like these before. My hunting buddy said he had seen the prints like this in the same area about 10 years ago. We did take pictures as well as I measured and cast molds of these prints. This is in no man's land, no humans around. What we found are juvenile skunk apes, Bigfoot tracks from 12 inches long to 8 inches long. In reviewing the tracks, there is apparently at least six distinctly different sets of tracks in that length range. The 12-inch must be heavier than me. I am 6 inches tall and 240 pounds. I tried jumping, but couldn't accomplish the depth of the 12-inch track imprint that must be twice my weight at approximately 480 pounds. I forgot to measure that stride, but I could not duplicate the length of the step. After casting these tracks, I methodically destroy the tracks and have found new tracks in the same area again the next day. I must have seen him making casts of their prints. The area where this was found is a swamp-like land with cranes, birds, deers, wild hogs, and large and small turtles and gators. And there appears to be areas where they have been digging for snails and crawdads. I have seen this evidence. These juveniles have been eating these. In other areas, there was additional evidence that one of them crossed over 2 roads where there are oysters and carried the oysters back over the same 2 roads, sat down and shelled them in an area where there are no oysters. Something carried those oysters here. Something carried those oysters there. I really believe that this is something and would like to share this information with someone who cares. I care. Who won't ridicule and might be able to give some answer to what we have seen and found. Look at that. Ooh, look at all those prints. And they're big too. See that puffy part right here? Wow, I'd like to look at those in person. See how puffy it is right there. Puffy heel. But this one's got a little bit of a... For the most part, there's no that inward thing right here like humans have. They're like, go in a little bit right here. But not as much as a human's would be like this. And this is an important feature too. I love these. Ooh, who goes around in there barefoot? With their 12-inch barefoot tracks that 480-pound self. There it is. That's going to connect that thing. I also, just for the heck of it, did to see if there were Charlotte County, Florida Bigfoot. What? 6 skunk ape sightings in Charlotte, 8 in Sarasota. Some say that Florida's adult Bigfoot is not less than 5 feet tall with shorter legs. I think that this map is very telling, and there's a connected trail of them coming along. Let me know if anybody knows of Bigfoot or dogman sightings in these empty areas here, because there are empty areas. They are grouped together and makes a trail. I love that. And there is a lot of overlapping. And it's like the opposite of overlapping in Crystal River. Like this very deliberate move on the outskirts of it. And it seems conspicuous to me. I'm mostly looking for overlapping. But just this says something like maybe the non-human inhabitants, since this place was ransacked by the Spaniards and again by our current civilization, so they would have had to flee it, and they would have fled circling it. There's a lot of overlapping here, though, going on, and overlapping with dogman, Bigfoot, and giant skeletons being found, and mound builders. A lot of overlapping. So, what does that mean? Oh, and let's not forget the sea monsters literally surrounding all of this Florida area. Like, I mean, there were more, but it's just, they're all over. They have to be real. I have to believe that they're real. Just because I don't go there and personally see one myself, doesn't make it untrue. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode on my Cryptic Cryptids YouTube channel about Cryptic, Florida, unusual features from the state. The cryptids and the giants. I'm sure I could have made a part 3, but I'm going to wrap it up here and get on to some other states, and the next state I'm going to tackle is Mississippi. Please don't forget to subscribe and like if you haven't already, and until next time, bye!